I'm finding it unlikely that anyone will be finding this journal, but if they do, know that here be written the last words of the great Captain Torredon of Dougal, Scourge of the Abyssinian Sea, Terror of the Gold Coast, Cutthroat of Hunting Bay, and Lord Captain of the Red Sabre, the finest band of buccaneers and pirates e'er to sail Tamriel. I ain't a man with much use for words. I ain't never been to no academies and I ain't never wrote no books. Words ain't never earned me no gold, so they's worthless to me. That's why ye have quartermasters and first mates. But I'm gonna be setting my last thoughts down here on paper, 'cause I ain't got much time left here, and it's every old man's right to have his words heard. Now, me business was fighting, sailing, and looting. I became a leader of sailing men, the most feared in history, or so they tells me. Now, before you be getting ahead of yourself, let me be warning you, my me tales does not end well, as I'm sure you can see from wherever you find me rolling bones in this God's cursed cavern. I was born in a little town on the north coast of Skyrim called Dunbarrow. Me mother was a wench, and me father was a right bastard. The only thing that either of them ever did for me was doing me the favor of sending me off to a sea captain when I was 9. That captain. He taught me everything I'd ever need to know about sailing and a few things about the rest too. You see, he was a smuggler, and he taught me all about smuggling and avoiding the Imperial Navy as he ran the schooner route from Daggerfall to Vivek. Shame he wore coat and hung. He were as close to a daddy as this old pirate ever knew. Closer than that bastard what sold me off ever were, that's for sure. After the captain were hung, I got around Hammerfell a lot, telling away a few crews here and there, and after a time got myself hired on as midshipman on Captain Caladas' rig. Of course, Caladas was a drunkard and a dumb fool ran his own ship aground in envelope for we could any real pirating done. So embarrassed were he that he drank himself to death in one of the piss-hole taverns in this flat little seawater town. Though there were in a backwater port when the war against the usurper broke out. I were out on hire with a rickety tub and a worthless rod of a cabin when the Imperial Navy stole every pirate ship in port to go and fight their war. We was coming back into dock when we heard about it. Now, only a fool doesn't bite when he smells blood in the water, and that captain of ours was gonna hand his order over to the Navy. The rest of us, well, we didn't so much like that. We cut his throat and tossed his worthless carcass to the depths for Kirmus Mora to feast on. The rest of us put keel to this mudhole and broke for the nearest cove to lay low for a while. Now, the thing that I learned about war is that it's profitable for just about everyone except for the poor bastards that actually have to go and fight it. While the Navy were busy putting down the revolution, they were too busy to worry about a bunch of pirates running up and down the Gold Coast. And even better for us, the Navy was needing a stream of supplies up in High Rock to fight and didn't have the ships to escort them. In case you don't be knowing, cargo vessels without escort is a pirate's best friend. In just a couple of years, I had every buccaneer from here to Valenwood flying under my flag. We had thousands of ships and crew, and more men join on every day. Soldiers and sailors, cast-offs from the war, escaped prisoners, They were the best cutthroats and sons or whores that a pirate captain could ever wish for. It brings a tear to my eyes to think of them all. But even better than the men were the ships. Captured navy cutters, refitted privateer galleons. Even had a few of them Bosma ships with the funny living sails in my fleet. The finest ships I saved for myself, the Black Flag. You'll find her rotting her round here. She don't look like much now, but I can tell ye that in her day there weren't no vessel she couldn't outrun. All these men and ships, we called ourselves the Red Sabre. The merchant ships called us Death on the seas. We got to be so feared that most crews just abandon ship when they see no flag on the horizon. With no navy to stop us, Captain Torridon Dougal in the Red Sabre was known all over the East. Now, I ain't one to brag, but the Empire had a bounty on me of 40,000 coins. Now that's something to be proud of. Of course, the poor bastards could never collect on it. Anvil being the wretched den that it is, and most sailors there worked for me anyhow, the Legion could never get no one to give me up. I wish those days could lasted forever, but you know how it is, friend. Ain't nothing good can ever last. I ain't got much time left. Sure, we had plenty of food down here. It lasted for years, but all this time in the wet and the dark, I got something nasty growing in me. What a terrible way to die. Not on the end of an enemy's cutlass, but because of some damned sickness. No seafaring man should die like this. At least, I can still hear the water. But I was telling the story of how I got mine, weren't I? I curse the day that the Cameron usurper died of that war indeed. 'Cause it was that day that Commodore Fasil Brannox turned his attention to the Red Sabre. A couple of months after the war, that fat pompous bastard decided to come down here to Envol and take up port in my town, looking to break up the Red Sabre. The Emperor gave him whatever he asked for to campaign against us, despite the coffers being empty from the war in Iraq. When Brannox couldn't get what he needed from my men in Envol, he set out looking all over the Abyssinian Sea for the Black Flag. There are hundreds of islands in the Abyssinian, and he landed a crew on each one. He rooted out my men when he could find them, hung those who weren't willing to go peacefully, and jailed those who laid down arms. No matter for many ships and men it cost him, he kept coming with more and more. We couldn't never get ahead of him, and we couldn't never mount a counterattack. It took him 4 years and a hell of a lot of ships, but that sea rat finally tracked me down. It was my own fault, anyway. If I never made the mistake I made, he'd have died before he found me. But a man has to stand up for his mistakes, no matter if it costs him. Besides, ain't like I'll be fooling ye, since you're likely staring at me bones as you're reading this. Brannox had his main force out of port following a lead that I planted. I set sail back to Envol, hoping to catch him off guard, capture the boats he left behind, and fight him with his own ships in Anvil Bay. Ha! Can you imagine the look on his pig's face if it would have worked? I thought I'd finally get the whole sun to show his face in a proper fight. I should have known, but he had men waiting there for me. We fought like hell, but we were trapped in the bay. The Navy men set the town on fire to keep us from fleeing onto land. I'm sure that the fine citizens of Cyrodiil didn't weep for the torching of a town of thieves. The main force of Imperial dogs held us when Umbranox showed up in his black ship. Umbranox fought me to the last ship, and in the end, the bay was filled with sunken and burning boats. If I weren't fighting for me life, I'd probably thought it were beautiful. So, the Black Flag and Umbranox's rickety tub were the only ones that were still floating and fighting when dawn came. So, I did what any pirate with sense would do. I tried to run. Now, understand, I'm a right bastard in my own way. I'm a pirate, a murderer, a thief, and I certainly had never believed in a fair fight. But there's a line and an unspoken code between sailing men, and Umbranox went too far. He had mages on his ship. Mages had never been allowed on my boats. They're no good. Bad luck. And I don't trust them. Turns out, I was right. I cut across the south side of the bay, along the huge cliff wall that used to be there. I had me helmsman stay as close as he could to the cursed cliff. I could hear those mages from the deck of Umbranox's ship, yelling some nonsense into the wind. A few rocks fell onto my deck, a few more, and then the whole bloody cliff came crashing down on top of me. Now, don't you worry. I didn't die just then. The cliff collapsed around the ship, making this damned cavern. Better it just fell on us, but no. It sealed the Black Flag, her crew, and me under tons of rock. We were buggered. I seen my own blood more times than I could ever count, but seeing the ragged mess that just come up out of me lungs just now is the only time I ever been afraid of it. I guess I should be getting to the last bit of my story. Me and me crew were trapped down here never to see the light again or some rot. We tried digging out. We tried blasting out. We tried calling to the Nines and the Daedric Princess for help. Nothing worked. Some of the men went crazy when we figured out that there were no getting out, but most of us just accepted what fate had dealt us. We made the hulk of the Black Flag into the best home that we could and tried making a life of it down here. We had plenty of stores with us, and since most of the crew were killed in the fight, it was more than enough to go around. I will tell you though, that you ain't known suffering until you ate nothing but hard rations for 20-some years. All the pain I ever caused anyone has been paid back to me tenfold in having to eat the same filth every day for the whole time I've been down here. Then Grim died off. Grim was the first, and one by one, the boys had been dropping off. They all got the same sickness I ended up with. We buried them when we could, threw them in the water when we didn't have strength to bury them. Finally, we just made them walk to the far side of the cavern a couple of days before the sickness ran its course. I'm the last, and I suppose that makes sense. The great Captain Dougal, defeated by Facile Umbranox and buried alive, forever. I wonder what became of Envor. Probably let it burn and swept the ashes into the sea. Umbranox probably went back to the Imperial City to pat himself on the back and be rewarded with lands and titles. Like I said, way back in the beginning, I don't expect nobody to ever read this, but if by chance someone does find my carcass down here in this pit, do an old seaman a favor. Track down whatever descendants that fat old sack Umbranox may have and tell him that Foradan of Dougal says hello.